Good morning. I'm Dr. Bernadette Buchanan. I'm she, her, hers pronouns. I am the Associate Dean of Students and Title IX Coordinator at Texas Lutheran University. I am connected with the EISJ division as a person from the African American Knowledge community. And thank you for joining us for the NASPA Acts Policy Pop-Up on Title IX Sexual Campus Assault, Response, and Prevention. NASPA Acts is committed to the equity, social justice, and inclusion division. Our goal is to provide ongoing outlets for social action and civic engagement at the annual conference and year-round. We're excited to be hosting these pop-ups in conjunction with the National Student Affairs Day of Action. Our goal today is to give a high-level overview of our issue and then a few tangible ways for you to take action and advocate. We'll also be sure to save more time to answer any questions that you have at the end of our session. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Jill Dunlap to get us started. But before that, we need to introduce our panel member.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Burwell and I'm Assistant Director of Residential Learning at University of Mississippi.
Very nice, and now we'll have Jill.
Good morning, everyone. I know some of you are in here just hanging out, enjoying your day, but you're going to get to know a little bit more about Title IX if you don't already. We're really excited to have you all here as part of these policy pop-ups. The goal of these really is to engage you as NASPA members in some of the things that are happening at the federal and state level regarding policy that impacts your everyday jobs. And so the first one of our series today is on Title IX. There are going to be other ones this afternoon and tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon on immigration policy, access and ability policy, and and trans inclusion. So if you are interested in policy, these are really accessible ways for you all to get a little bit of information and you can take back and use on your campus. So just to get into, we only have about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to give you some high-level overview information about Title IX. If you work in Title IX on your campus, then you probably eat, sleep, live, and breathe this topic. If you don't, hopefully this will give you a little bit of information about how what's happening at the federal and state level will impact your work on campus. So if you have been following the news at all, even like popular culture news and mainstream media, not necessarily higher ed policy news, you've seen that the Department of Education is currently in the process of revising its rules for Title IX on college campuses. And this has some significant implications for the students on your campuses. So this would really limit the jurisdiction of what types of sexual misconduct is reportable to your Title IX coordinator. It redefines the definition of sexual harassment and what can be reported as a sexual harassment complaint on your campus. And so again, if you watch the news or are, following the Me Too movement, we have done a lot of work on our campuses over the past 6 or 7 years, educating students about what is, inappropriate and, behavior that violates our student policies. And we're rolling a lot of that back right now under the proposed rules. So that is important to know. If you don't want to read the whole 173-page document that the Department of Education put out because you know how to have a good time on a Friday night, unlike me, you can go to the NASPA Research and Policy Institute page, and we have excerpted it and put on some digestible information on those, on the changes and how it would impact your work on campus. Secondly, there's a lot of anxiety right now around what the Department of Education is rolling back with regard to Title IX, but the good news is that so much of the protections for our students on campus is found under the Clery Act. So it's really important that if you are thinking that everything has just now gone out the window in terms of protections for students who have experienced sexual violence, that's not entirely true. So a lot of the protections that they enjoy come under the Clery Act, which is part of the Violence Against Women Act. So there are still some protections there for your students that we, and some compliance issues that you all will need to make sure that you are communicating to students. And then finally, we're doing this in 3 bits, right? 3 things you should know, and then 3 things you can do on these topics as part of these policy pop-ups. And the third thing that you should know is that many of you work in states that are passing state level legislation to additionally protect students against sexual misconduct. So even if the Department of Education is rolling back some of their guidance, the states that you all reside in are passing gobs of legislation, that's the technical term, to protect students that are experiencing sexual misconduct or experiencing harm in terms of interpersonal violence on your campuses. So just know that. So you're like, okay, that's great. There's some things in place. There's some things being rolled back. There's some things happening at the state level. What do I do? And this is the sort of NASPA Acts part of these policy pop-ups, right? Like, you have this information now, what do you do with it? And I would say also, I just forgot to mention that we have these really handy policy pop-up booklets, and you can get them over here at this table or on this table, and they'll be available throughout the conference. So if you are not able to make any of these policy pop-ups, please do see these, because the information on accessibility and on immigration policy and trans inclusion, that's all found in here. And so it's, again, the idea, 3 things you should know, 3 things you should do. So back to what you can do about Title IX and saving the world, right? So while there are changes happening at the federal level, it's really important to stay up to date on what's happening in your state. And one really easy way to do that, shameless self-plug, is that the NASPA Research and Policy Institute puts out a weekly digest of what's happening at the state level, so that you can keep on top of anything that's impacting your state. With regard to sexual misconduct. And we're tracking a lot of things, right? Like, we track other state legislation on, campus carry laws and bathroom discrimination bills and that sort of thing. So there's really good information for you all if you're interested in what's happening in terms of state law that would impact your work in those weekly digests. The second one is that you can start to gather stakeholders around sexual violence on your campus to talk through what these changes might mean for you. So if they change the definition of sexual misconduct, what does that mean for you? How do you communicate that to students? And then finally, I would suggest that you continue to support students, both respondents and complainants, who are engaged in these cases. And the reason for that is the media message they're getting is that students or that campuses are sort of trampling due process rights for respondents, and that we don't care about respondents as a group, which we all know isn't true. And then additionally, with the rollback of the Title IX guidance and some of the things that were in place under the Obama administration, many survivors are feeling hesitant about coming forward. And so what we communicate to our students is really important. So while we're talking about, federal level things and state level things, it's really important to recenter students in this conversation, because in the same way that we're digesting media and we're digesting the news reports about what's happening with regard to protections for students who experience sexual harm, our students are also digesting that information. And it's really important that they know that we are here to continue to support them if they have experienced harm, and that our processes are here to support them. So that's the sort of things you can do. Many of you, I think, probably worked with your students around the notice and comment period. There were notice and comment writing parties on many of your campuses, which were so cool to watch. So continuing to support students who are being civically engaged on this topic as things continue to change at the federal level is really great. So thank you for all of your hard work on campus. We'll open it up to questions at this point, if anyone has any, about either Title IX guidance at the federal level or any of the changes that are happening in your states. Any things that you all are working on that you think are working really well in terms of supporting students? We would open that up to you to share, or if you have questions. Oh, so there was a question of how to get the monthly or the weekly update. There's a Research and Policy Institute policy update, and if you go to the Research and Policy Institute page on the NASPA website, you can enter your email address to get those updates, and then it'll come directly to your email. They're so helpful, and my super smart colleague Diana Ali is the one who puts those together every week, and they are really, I read them front to back, and I know that's kind of my job, but I think they're also really useful for other folks that are trying to keep abreast of higher education policy at the state level. Yeah?
How likely, I'm going to talk about
Sure.
that. How likely do you think it is that those proposed changes are going to make it approved, right? Because I think that's part of the larger conversation of the massive response to the comment period. I don't know.
Right.
Is the department going to take that seriously or not? But
Right. So the question was, how likely do we think it is that all of the comments will be taken into consideration and that the final rule will come out as it was proposed?